Okay. Hope you enjoyed this song. It's good to focus on the fundamentals, right? It's good to focus on the things that don't change, especially when the world that we live in is constantly changing. And I think that it's fair to say that these days, so many changes are happening all the time. This week we have the election, and COVID has changed everything and continues to constantly change things in our lives. And it's really easy to feel like out of control. But I think that these are really good opportunities to focus on the things that haven't really changed that much. So then this is one of them. So today I'm going to be talking about why should I live for others? Why should I serve others? And the reason that I wanted to talk about this today is because I've been listening to Dr. Young's morning services on the internet. And for those of you who have been listening to them or interested in listening, there's some really great internal guidance that he's been giving. He's doing like a 40 days of internal guidance for the whole country. He's live streaming it at 6 a.m., which is 4 here. But you can watch the recordings later. And he's been doing a series on attributes of love. And it's just been really awesome. It's been a really awesome for me to be able to hear that kind of guidance that I haven't heard in a long, long time. So if you haven't been listening to them, I really recommend it. Really great. They're really great. You can find them on edu.familyfed.org. Or Facebook, yeah. Good old Facebook. But I wanted to take one point from one of his messages that he gave on Monday that I felt to be really meaningful. Because I was personally feeling a little bit overwhelmed last week, and I think in many ways kind of questioning, what's the real value of living for others, concerning myself with the needs of others, so on and so forth. And so he talked about why do we live for the sake of others? Why was that a mantra? Why was that a theme that True Father talked about so much? Almost to the point where I think that when we hear the term live for the sake of others or LFSO, it doesn't even mean anything to us anymore. We've heard it so many times. We've heard it so much that I think that for many of us, it doesn't even feel real. Like, oh, that's just some way of living that is out there somewhere, and I'm never going to be like this kind of selfless, perfect, giving person. But at one point, I fell into the same kind of rut, and I decided to reframe the saying to something that was more meaningful to me. And so instead of saying to live for the sake of others, I started saying to put the needs of others before my own. And for myself personally, that was much more meaningful. So putting the needs of others before my own. Why should we do that? I think probably many of you have heard this idea before, maybe the different reasons why. But I hope to maybe, dig in a little bit more in maybe a way that we haven't thought about so much before, maybe you haven't thought about so much. A big part of it is for myself, actually. As weird as that may sound, experiencing joy and fulfillment in my own life has a lot to do with actually how I treat other people. Because at the end of the day, no matter how amazing of a person I might be or you might be, no matter how creative or artistic or talented or athletic or professional or rich that each and every one of us may be, we can't experience joy and happiness and fulfillment in our lives just through those things. We can't experience fulfillment and joy and happiness in our lives by ourselves. And I remember very clearly when I was preparing this message, I was thinking back to my younger days. And I was remembering how when I was young, I used to pour myself and my energy into video games. I could spend hours upon hours endlessly playing video games, watching anime, watching movies, collecting movies, so on and so forth. And I have this very clear memory at one point in my life of just playing and playing and playing and playing. And then I realized it just kind of popped into my head. This just really isn't doing it for me. This is awful. It's like how much of my life am I going to spend in front of this screen? And it was kind of a wake-up moment for me that I never have forgotten. Even though there have been times in my life, that I have enjoyed playing some games, watching TV series and different things like that. But I've always remembered that moment where I realized that this life wasn't really making me happy. And I couldn't really find happiness by doing these things, even though I could get, like a rush, by completing a mission, or by leveling up my character, or, finding this movie that I had been looking for so long. It quickly wore off, and I was always looking for the next thing. And at one point, here's a quote. True Father said, "As isolated individuals, we can never find happiness. Rather, we need another element with which to bring it about, another person, material things, or an intellectual goal. Happiness is always found within a proper relationship of subject and object partners." So we can find a certain level of happiness through achieving success, or through achieving a goal, getting a PhD, getting a master's, getting that job, getting that promotion, or whatever it is. Personally, I really enjoy these videos that you can find online. I don't know what they're called exactly, but they're these people. They love to go and find these old machines or old tools, like a drill or an iron, or like a microwave from, like 80 years ago or 50 years old, and it's all rusted and it's broken and it doesn't work, and it's something that most people would just throw in the trash. But these people, they take them and they take them apart and they take the rust off, and it's this whole meticulous process. They have to speed it up because in real time it probably takes days of effort to take these old things, and then they make them look amazing. They make them look better than the original. And they put all this effort into putting coats of paint and then, enamel over them and just make them look really, really cool. And that's kind of like a hobby that some people have. And I actually really enjoy watching that, because I can imagine how fulfilling it must feel to take something that looks like garbage and would be garbage to most people and make it look new again, give it new life, repurpose it. Instead of seeing something go into the garbage, you can see it being used and admired for its beauty. So there's a lot of ways in which we can find levels of fulfillment in doing different things, which I'm not trying to knock. Don't misunderstand me. I think that those are really awesome things. But the point that Dr. Young was talking about that I think really inspired me, or that really kind of made me reflect, was in the value of our relationships with other people and how meaningful those are meant to be, even though our actual life experience doesn't always seem that way. His point was that the greatest fulfillment that we experience in our lives actually comes when we give love and invest into other people. And if we look at it this way, then living for others or putting other people's needs before my own, it's not really a cliche idea or a conceptual idea. It's simply a natural way of life that God intended for us to live. It's not supposed to be some way out there concept that like, oh my God, I've never heard that before. It's a natural way of living, and we experience that in our own life in many different ways. In our relationship with our kids. What does it mean to be a parent? It means you put the needs of your child before your own. You know, what kind of parent is going to sit there with the only bowl of food while their kids have nothing to eat, right? It's natural the parent will be like, it's more important that my child eats than for me to eat. You know, that's the natural mentality and heart of a parent. It doesn't have to be taught. It's just because you love your child in some ways more than you love yourself. It's the same with your relationship with your spouse, your husband or your wife. When in a healthy and happy relationship, we put the needs of our spouse before my own. I want my wife to be happy. I want my husband to be happy. I want to fulfill their needs. I want to live for their sake. And in a relationship where the husband and wife and the parents and the children are living for the sake of each other, putting the needs of the other in front of their own needs, then you find harmony. You find happiness. You find peace. You find fulfillment. It's a beautiful thing. If everybody in the world lived that way, thinking of the needs of my neighbor or the needs of the other people in my life as being as important as my own needs, then we would live in a very different world. And I think that's one of the reasons why Jesus said in Mark chapter 12, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is love your neighbor as yourself. So this way of living is not, it's the way that God originally intended for us to experience our relationships. As an individual within myself, our life, our body is meant to serve our higher mind, right? Our conscience, our original mind, God's calling for my life. And in our relationship with our spouse, we serve our spouse. We attend our spouse. We seek to fulfill the needs of our spouse. And as a couple, we live for our children. And we teach our children to live for others as well. And in a family where everybody is living for each other's sake, there's a lot of love and there's a lot of harmony. But at the same time, we don't live in that way of living. We don't live in that life a lot of the times. It's a great ideal, you know. It's like but we have our bad days, right? Some days we just wake up and I have those days. I don't know about you guys, but I wake up, I'm just like, you know what? I don't feel like caring about anybody. I don't feel like caring about anything. I just want to stay in bed and escape the world, pull my covers over and see how long I can stay in this bed and before anyone notices, which obviously isn't very long in my life. But I think that we all have those days where we kind of, we don't really feel like, putting other people's needs in front of our own, even if they're our own kids, even if they're our own spouse, someone that we love dearly. Thank God that God is not that way. Thank God that God does not wake up and have a bad day and just be like, you know what, I don't care about these ungrateful children anymore. But we can get stuck in the opposite of this kind of way of thinking and way of living, where we get stuck in kind of like a selfish way of thinking where, I don't want to put anyone's needs before my own. I just want to take care of myself. I just want to receive. I want to get what's owed to me. And, then we start having a lot of problems because relationships don't work that way, especially if both people are feeling that way. Somebody has to be the person to give. But many times, we actually experience that it's really hard to live that way. It's really hard for me to be a giving husband. It's really hard for me to be a giving father or a wife or a mother. Many of us have experienced that we actually never really received a lot of love growing up, or we didn't experience that kind of a family dynamic, so I don't really know how to give it. So many times there's a lot of growth that needs to happen. But ultimately, if we experience the joy and happiness through giving and putting others' needs in front of our own, then God must be that way as well. I think that that's something very deeply ingrained into human beings that God put there because that is who God is. Even God can't find happiness by himself. And this is a point that a lot of religions and religious people don't understand. Why did God create? I have very strongly devout Christian family members who they're like, I don't know why God would have made this world, would have made all these people. And some people believe that God made his people to worship him or to serve him, to sing to him from heaven. I think this divine principle makes a lot more sense, that even God couldn't create happiness by himself. God can create anything, right? They recently discovered that there was a planet made out of, it seems like it's made out of diamond. I guess it's kind of hard to tell. It boggles my mind how they can discover these things millions of light years away. But apparently, they found a planet like that. And, God could create and has created anything he could want. But God can't create his own happiness because we only experience happiness in relationship with others. So even in that way, God is limited. God can't experience happiness just by relating to himself. God wanted to create someone that he could have a heart-to-heart bond with. Equals, in a way. Even God experiences value and fulfillment through living for us, for living for human beings, as strange as that might seem. If we could produce happiness and fulfillment by ourselves without the need for anybody or anything, then there would be no need for this concept of living for others. There'd be no need to put others' needs before myself, because all I would really need in my life to find happiness is just to live for myself and to do what I like to do. But it doesn't work that way. And there would be no need to get married, be no need to have kids, and there would be no need to put others' needs in front of our own, because that's a hard thing to do. We all know that taking responsibility, loving somebody, these are hard things to do. They push all our buttons. They push all our insecurities. They confront us with our shortcomings. Why go through all the trouble if there wasn't a benefit in the end? We can apply the same principle to leadership. Dr. Young called it parental leadership. And he talked about how any person in a leadership position, whether it's a pastor, a government figure, a CEO, or manager of a company, the first question to ask yourself is, how can I give? How can I serve? So I kind of think that same way about the church. I don't know about you, but I've had experiences where I've gone to churches and the general feeling is that of expectation or to receive. But I think that for us, and I really want to live this. We really want to try to live this idea, this principle of giving first and receiving later. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but even in the church leadership, what is the role of the church? The way that I see it, my personal opinion, is that the role of the church is to provide the environment for people to experience growth and joy and honesty and fellowship. And then also to give relatable and relevant spiritual guidance and direction. And I think that that's giving. That is from the role of the church and the church leadership. That is putting the needs of others before my own needs. Because obviously as pastors and as a church, there are certain needs as well, and certain expectations and hopes and ideas that we have, right? But what comes first? To expect, to receive, or to give? And fulfill the needs, to put the needs of the members of the church before even my own. The principle teaches us that to give first is the right way. So, we hope that in this church you feel a spirit of giving, but that's the kind of the model that we're trying to create. But I don't know. I hope so. Father said that if you always give first, then you will always develop and always grow and always multiply. But if you just receive and receive, then things will just get smaller and smaller. Then they don't develop and they grow up and multiply. So in our relationships, what works? To give first or to expect to receive first? To give, right? I mean, we can try to expect to receive. And people do this, right? Parents, we work so hard for our kids, right? And during the first years of their life, they don't know what you do for them. They don't know the sleepless nights that they caused you. They don't know the sacrifice the mother makes to breastfeed her children or to carry them, in their womb, and to carry them when they're babies and they can't do anything for themselves. The kids don't have any concept of that until they have kids of their own. But you can't go to them and be like, you owe me. You don't know it, but I did so much for you, and now it's time for me. You owe me some payback for all that effort and for those sleepless nights and, changing those disgusting diapers and, all the messes, the poops on the wall or whatever it is. Went through it all. Or what about your wife or your husband? You can't go to them and be like, you know what? I've given this and that and that, and I think it's time for me to just get for a while, It doesn't work like that. I mean, you could try, but you're not going to get a great relationship, I think. And I think that even though there are times where we probably all feel a little bit like, I don't know if I have really received back for the effort that I've put in, we have to be really careful if we suddenly find ourselves in the mindset of, I've given and I'm done. I just want to receive. I just want to receive what's owed to me. It could be that way with your spouse. It could be that way with your kids. It could be that way with your parents. It could be that way with the church. It could be that way with your job. Because even though that may seem justified, it's a dead-end path. There's no light at the end of that tunnel. have to really ask myself if that's really the way I want to live. It doesn't mean that things will always turn out well for us if we invest ourselves in a lifestyle of giving and serving and putting others' needs in front of our own. But I do know that a life where we put our needs first before anybody else's will just end in ruin. It's the story of the fall, isn't it? It's like, I just want to take. I just want to have what's mine before my time. And Jesus, he lived this kind of life. We look at his life in the Bible as so, even though we know so little about his actual life. And there was many times where Jesus lamented. Where is it? Here we go. Let's see here. He said, O Jerusalem, how often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you would not. And he's up on the cross, and he's saying, God, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And many, many times Jesus said these kind of things. He was sad. He gave and he gave and he gave, and it was very rarely recognized. And even at the end of his life, so few people actually really followed Jesus. But he gave, and his legacy never ended. But he never, even though he was sad, and even though he, probably got discouraged at times, he never became bitter. He never became resentful. He never said, screw it. Forget these ungrateful people. We struggle with people in our lives because we don't apply this principle of giving first. Whether we're in a position of a husband, a wife, a parent, a child, a leader, a pastor. Striving to become a godly person means striving to give first, to love first, to invest into first. Even if and sometimes that investment doesn't come back to you from that person. You give love to somebody and they maybe will give love back to you, or they'll receive it and be, oh, thank you so much. Or they might just forget. Like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. So it's important that in all situations that we find ourselves in, that we strive to become people who can focus on giving and serving. Inevitably, will create more goodness in our lives. We become more like God, who is that way, and experience more happiness and fulfillment in our lives. So, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was preparing this message is my relationship with my youngest daughter, the one who's dancing up here on stage. She is so hard-headed, and she just does what she wants to do. And I found that I can't talk her out of doing things. I can't scold her. I can't give her a punishment that would be harsh enough that she would stop doing what she was doing. She would just do it behind my back. And the stronger I push, the stronger she pushes back. And so inevitably we end up in, when she gets older, we could inevitably end up in just a clash, a butt of heads, of two strong, opinionated people. And so, this has been really frustrating for me as the dad. I want to sit down with my child and explain to her why it's not okay to steal toys from her sister's room, or to take her brother's things and tear them in pieces, or to draw on the walls, or to come over to the church and take the candies, or any number of things. I could go on and on. And I try to explain to her, this is not okay for this reason and for that reason, and then she'll just go and do it anyway. And I'll be like, ugh, so frustrating. And then Adonia and I try to come up with strategies like, okay, we'll make a calendar, and if she doesn't do anything destructive for one day, she can put an X on the calendar. If she does 3 of those, then she can get a special treat. And it's kind of working, but kind of not. And actually, this was a really good experience. I've realized that this dynamic has been very draining for me this last week. It's just made me very tired. And preparing for the sermon, I realized something, and I realized that I'm expecting to receive. I'm expecting to receive some, acknowledgement as the parent, respect, my word, what I say. Just trust me. I'm saying this for a reason. But she and my other kids are okay with that, but she's not. So it's forcing me to expand my, perspective, because I don't want to break her. That's a great characteristic to have. I don't want to break her strong-headedness. It's going to serve her very well in the future when she's going to be up against challenging experiences in her life and disappointments. She'll have the strong-headedness to set her mind on doing something hopefully good and righteous and just follow through with it. That's awesome. I love that. It just doesn't serve her very well right now. It doesn't serve me very well as a parent. But I realized that I am, I am trying to get through to her in a certain way that I think that she should be able to receive, but she's not. And it's kind of like with another person in your life, a friend, a spouse, or whatever. You want to talk to them or give love to them or give to them in a way that maybe would be meaningful to you, but it may not be meaningful to them. And so if it really matters to you to be able to have a meaningful relationship with them, to have love in that relationship, to have trust in that relationship, then it's my responsibility to try to find a way to reach, to give in a way that can be received. So I realized that I am trying to receive without giving. Or I'm giving in a way that she can't receive, and I'm trying to receive expecting that she received what I gave. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, that's a little confusing. So I realized that I need to find a way to meet her where she's at. And there's not any guarantee that she'll respond, but I think that if we can find some way to expand, maybe we need to develop ourselves as parents. Maybe we need to read some books. Maybe we need to watch some videos. Maybe we need to take some classes or something like that. But it's not healthy, the kind of dynamic that's there now. So it's a blessing, though. It's a blessing. It's an opportunity for me to recognize that I have a lot of growing to do. And I have a lot of learning. And that God created many different kinds of personalities and characters, so much so that even if you have a few children, they could be all completely drastically different and have no character similarity to you at all. And that's the beauty of the family, is that in all those dynamics of relationships, you become a really rounded person. You learn how to relate to all kinds of people in this world, not just people who are like you or people who are like me. I can learn to reach somebody like my youngest daughter who is not like me at all, but if I can learn to reach her and we can have a loving relationship of trust, then for one thing, I'll be able to reach more people who are like that. I'll be able to understand more variety of people. But also it will make me a better father and a better pastor and a better husband, and I'll understand why God made people like that. So please take this opportunity to, if there's something that in my message that you feel is meaningful for you, to ask yourself, am I giving? Am I a giving person? Am I a person that the people in my life feel like they receive a lot from? Or am I a person that people feel like I'm just trying to receive from them? What area in my life can I give more? can I give in a different way? Maybe that person is not receiving from me in the right way. And see if there's something there in that area of your life that could be a little bit different, or could try to give first instead of expecting to receive instead. So that is the end of my message. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, Heavenly Parent. We're so grateful for everybody coming here today to celebrate this Sunday and also the Fall Festival. I recognize that with all the things happening in the world, sometimes it can feel like taking a risk just to step out your front door. And with that in mind, I just feel so grateful for everyone for being here, for creating this awesome atmosphere, and for the opportunity to focus ourselves and our lives on your will for our lives, to grow a stronger sense of community and stronger families, which are the pillar of everything that we're trying to create in this church. I'm just so grateful for every single person, so grateful for your guidance in our lives. We really want you to be in our lives, Heavenly Parent. We want you to be drawn to our families, our community. We want you to feel like this is your home. And so pray that we can, each and every one of us, and myself included, can take this message to heart, to think how we can serve and give more to others and make that a part of our way of life. I offer this prayer in my name, Michael Adonia Hendrick, a blessed central family. Amen and Aju. Thank you.